Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today, and we're back with another Iron Age comic review. Taking a look today at Kamen America Volume 7, which just came in hot off the presses. And I have to go with it, Kamen America Gaiden, which is the spin-off series that was released on Webtoons. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this product other than to say you can read it all for free on Webtoons still. And if you're interested in doing that, it's a fun read. It's mostly a gag a day, kind of a classical newspaper strip, comic strip format or approach. 4 in Japan would be the rough equivalent to it. But there's not a whole lot of narrative, important stuff in here. There's some backstory for the main characters that you, I think, can kind of piece together from the rest of the comic. Nothing groundbreaking in there. There's some side stories. There's the crossover with Flork of Cows. I forget what the name of that web comic is. And of course, there's the introduction of Nanfield, which is their Garfield spoof parody character. All in all, it's a really fun book. I wanted it in hard copy just in case, but it's not anything that's going to change your experience of the mainline comic books if you choose not to get it. The campaign also came with some tchotchkes. Again, these are not the biggest thing for me, but if you're interested in these kind of things, this time around we got a trading card as usual. Mine is Marmot Maiden, as you can see right there. And we got a postcard or pseudo postcard from the Nyanfield World theme park, which is apparently in Florida, according to Volume 7. That's an actual plot element in here. But there were apparently 3 of these. I got the Haunted Plantation. I don't know. You can probably hunt down others of those from people who don't care about them and buy them, beat them, trade them, that kind of a thing. So that's what we got. Pretty cool stuff. The art actually on this, I should add, and I think on this as well, only the back art, is by the Japanese artist Gyosone. I know that's not right pronunciation-wise, but he or she is an artist that really likes to draw Kamen America characters and has done several that you can see on Twitter or Instagram or whatever your artist stocking software of choice is. And apparently they have been commissioned to do several pieces of art for Kamen America at this point. Very cool. Good illustrations all around. So let's talk about the actual book. Form factor wise, it's the usual Iconic Comics package. Great cover, great paper stock, feels very good in the hand. The binding seems like it'll hold up to repeated readings. So all in all, what you want to see from a book. The art is quite good. Timothy Lim has mastered drawing these characters. He seems to really enjoy drawing these characters. He's gotten a better sense of acting the characters out, letting us see their emotional state, their subtext in their expression and the way they stand and the way they relate to the world around them. He has shown impressive growth in this area. His coloring, I think, is getting a little more nuanced as time goes on. The difference in the shading and how it is set up has changed. I think it's gotten a little more bold, but also a little more nuanced. So his colors are still very bright, although not garishly so. And at the same time, there is an interesting composition to them, especially when there's some bright lighting effects. We see a lot of ghosts in this volume. And here's a good example of what I'm talking about. I believe Timothy Lim colors these as well as drawing them. And you can see, like, blue and brown is not exactly the greatest color combination. And Carly's hair here has some browns to it. And I don't know. I don't know if anyone notices these things. I work in printing these days, and it's just something that kind of catches my eye more now, that he managed to really merge those two colors on the page very well. We also have some really cool shots like this, where we see Carly cast in shadow with an explosion behind her that looks really good and is probably an homage to some other panel. I feel like I've seen a panel like that before in comics, but it has a natural placement in the story, and Tim did a really great job with it. These are the kinds of things we wouldn't have seen, I think, 2 years ago from Timothy Lim. He has evolved a lot, and it shows. Story-wise, this story is about what you would expect from the second to last installment in a story arc. This is kind of a low point. There's a lot of things that are set up here that aren't paid off. It's presumed that if you've made it 3 volumes into a 4-volume story, you're going to, commit and get the 4th one and get all of your questions answered. So I really don't have a problem with the fact that this is less of a self-contained story. We're pretty deep in it now, and we should be ready for that. I like some things about this, and I don't like some things about it. There's more that I like than I don't like, but I am going to cite some of the issues here in a way that I hope is spoiler-free, because my intention, this is not the critique of the story quite yet. I'll just say we get a lot of development for some major characters, both as protagonists and antagonists, and I like most of what we get. In particular, we get a lot of exposition on the families of our heroines, and particularly, unsurprisingly, given the title is Faith of Our Fathers, we see the dads of our protagonists quite a bit. They are, of course, Carly's dad has been a major character in just about every volume so far, and we saw a fair amount of Sylvia's dad in the previous volume. But in this one, we get some development of that relationship outside of a context of them just giving advice. Sylvia's dad, we got, since he is now deceased, unfortunately, we're not going to see him again. So he got, I think, better rounded in his one appearance than any other father figure in the story has so far. But we get to see Carly interacting with her parents and Sig's parents and some other parents in a very casual setting. And that is interesting. It helps us understand what has developed and shaped these characters. It gives us an idea of what their lives are like when they're not in costume, which is pretty important because they can only really be superheroes for 3 hours each day. So it's really good character development. And then our antagonists, we see some antagonists that we hadn't really seen doing anything impressive yet. In particular, the purple Zener and the black Zener, which is Zener's Psycho and Zener Ecto. As you might guess from these names, one of them has psychokinetic powers. The other one is we don't know exactly what, but he can manipulate ghosts in some way. Both of these are very powerful and compelling villains that are interesting to see. Sorry if the camera's flickering there. Not sure what happened. Anyway, that is the good stuff. The bad stuff is we get some development for one of the primary characters that is related almost entirely through exposition. And it's an important character beat that had to happen in this story. I really think that if they had waited to do this character beat any longer, it would have been annoying to the audience. It definitely would have annoyed me, and a lot of other people would have been upset that they were dragging their feet on it as well. But this is a very full story as well. It's setting up the low point so that the heroines can drag themselves out of it in the next volume. And I don't think it got all the attention it really deserved. And it may have been better truncating that particular character development in this volume and waiting to unpack it until a later time. And just, giving it a very passing mention in 1 or 2 panels rather than a page and a half, I believe, of expository dialogue that I don't think really develops it as well as it deserves, especially given how popular the character in question is. But all in all, a very solid story that sets up the climax of the story arc very well. So if you're already into Kamen America, definitely pick this up. If you're not into it, I would recommend picking up Omnibus Volumes 1, the Omnibus of Volumes 1 through 4, before starting on this character arc, because this is a great continuation of that story arc, but it's not a great jumping on point. That would be Volume 5, or maybe the Black Ops crossover even. All in all, a solid entry into the series. Very good stuff. And that's all I've got really for the review. So let's get into the critique a little bit more. And this is where I am going to spoil a couple of things that I liked and that I didn't like. The thing that I like the most in the development here is we see Sylvia kind of manipulating things behind the scenes quite a bit. Sylvia has a position in the Zener Corps quite comparable to the one, or excuse me, Cynthia. I don't know why I was calling her Sylvia. Well, it's because she has a position in the Zener Corps quite comparable to what Sylvia has in the Kamen Corps. And I think that's deliberate. It shows that even though these two women are not blood related, they have a lot of the same mindset and personality. And I think Cynthia has shaped Sylvia, whether consciously or subconsciously, in ways that make them fulfill these very high touch, high relationship, high manipulation ways. Sylvia is not as manipulative as Cynthia is, but she does, especially in some of the earlier volumes, she does have a tendency to meddle with people in ways she thinks that is good for them. And I think Cynthia is also acting in a way she thinks is good for people. But manipulative or meddlesome is another personality trait these characters share. I really like seeing that, and I am very eager to see how the eventual confrontation between them goes. I also think that the setup of Sylvia at the end, playing her own, not really manipulative card, but we see her talking with someone here at Area 51, and I would put a substantial quantity of money on that being Vicky, and Sylvia is probably going to be bringing Vicky into the fight at some point, although she does say someone needs Vicky even more than Carly will in the near future. So that's interesting. I also like the setup of Kamen Ramen and Marmot Maiden coming back from Japan. That's interesting because we know that they have something on the plane with them that they both find freaky. And given what we've seen of Kamen Ramen's childhood and the kinds of souvenirs she collects, that's saying something because she has unique tastes. I think that the one thing that really I didn't like in this story was the breaking of the love triangle, and not because they did that. As I've said in other reviews, I was kind of frustrated with Siggy's behavior based on this love triangle between him, Carly, and Misha. And Misha was kind of obviously a third wheel. She was very aggressive about it, which fits with her personality. But I thought Siggy was starting to feel a little weak for not doing something there. He was too passive, I think, especially in volumes 4 and 5. Things took a turn for the better in volume 6, and here he clearly makes his choice. He's never really seemed that interested in Misha to me, and Misha has caught on to that as well. But we have about a page and a half where she talks about somebody she was fond of in her mercenary life, and how he died in a mission. And I understand, as I said before, there's not a lot of room to dwell on this part of Misha's character. This is a pretty significant moment in her life, not maybe a landmark one, but certainly one that has influenced her thinking about affection and relationships. And I don't know, I think that just having her relate this story and then send Siggy on his way feels like doing her a bit of a disservice. Um, I think that it's a little too pat, and I think Misha is stoic enough for this story beat to work. I don't think it's out of character. I just don't think it has quite the level of nuance in dealing with the character's internal emotional landscape that we saw in Volume 6 with all the flashbacks revolving around Sylvia's father and her family situation. And again, this is a different story from Volume 6, and there's not as much time to get into the interiority of characters in this narrative. That's why I think it would have been better to have like maybe a panel or two where Misha talks about somebody she was fond of but waited too long to talk to, and we could have like a background panel like this one here that would allow the audience to understand some of that context and then just move on from it and save this story for a little more unpacking later on. Maybe we will get that at some point. Hopefully we will, because I really feel like just introducing and then dropping this idea is to do Misha a disservice. But, you know, if this is the great sin of this volume, it's not a terrible one. There are some very good character moments. Again, we have this retirement party for Siggy's dad, where a lot of the neighborhood people are around, and we get to see Carly and Misha interacting with them. That's quite good. Something I didn't mention at all that I appreciated was the Miss Carrot Enstick, the journalist who has been doing digging for Carly behind the scenes. Having Carly developing her own contacts and information network is not only smart of her, but it helps us understand the world as well. And, you know, getting these information drops is a very condensed, meaningful way to not only expand Carly's options and our appreciation of her character, because she knows her limits and she's smart enough to try and compensate for them. It also gives us some exposition on the world disguised as Enstick's reports. So a good device here and a good way to get us some information in a very condensed form while also obliquely informing us of our character in a meaningful way. Pretty good story arc. Of course, at the end, our characters are scattered and tied up in a bunch of individual confrontations or just out of reach, out of cell phone range, and on their own. So we'll see what happens in Volume 8. Pretty good entry. I do recommend it. And I think this is not going to be one of the top Kamen America volumes, but it's also not going to be one of the bottom ones. Again, as I believe I've said in the past, Lim and Pellegrini have such a deep bibliography at this point that, I mean, some of the books are just going to wind up in the middle because there's nowhere else for them to go. And it's not bad. I'm not saying it's terrible that this is a pretty average Kamen America installment, because the average installment is still quite entertaining, pretty wholesome, and gives you some good character work to sink your teeth into. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button there. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.